Yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy, the Anime Mambo here, coming back at you with part 35 of What If Naruto Was Like Minato, otherwise known as Return of the Flash on Wattpad. And if you would like to read the story for yourself, the link in the description will bring you there and you can read it. If you don't like the way that I narrate things or whatever, that's totally fine, no offense taken. Go read the story, it's a great story. Also, the Discord link in the description. If you join the Discord server, you'll be able to know when I post a video or what series I'm recording next. You'll also get input on the channel and things of that nature, story ideas for the future, and stuff like that. So yeah, join the Discord server. Also, we are on the road to 1,000. Next stop is 900. I believe we're at like 860, 870, something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't just check it. But if you see the video, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm gonna get a little sentimental, but I remember when I recorded that video talking about the first 100 subs, and yeah, it just feels really surreal, and I really appreciate everybody that's, subscribed and supported and just watched. So thank you guys, honestly, for real, appreciate it. And yeah, so like, comment, and subscribe. I respond to all comments when I see them, and I like all comments and heart all comments when I see them. And I genuinely appreciate them. I appreciate all you guys, again, love and support. If you see the video and you subscribe, please turn on post notifications so that you get notified whenever I post a video in the future, or a new series, or this series, or another series, or whatever. Whenever I post, turn on post notifications. So yeah, I think that's about it for me for this intro bit thing right here. So yeah, without further ado, this is your boy, the Anime Mambo, and cue the intro, please.
And watch y'all hold my breath. Smoke fire so fresh to death. Thank God for every breath. Used to know, still I step. Remember dog tape when you get sweat. Halfway right, girl, halfway left. I pray I do my best. I pray that's like my best.
Let's get right on into the video. Tsunade had a triumphant and smug expression on her face as she watched Naruto apparently sprint towards her with a kunai. He was attacking her head on, seemingly without any strategy. Perhaps the son of the Ondaime failed to inherit the brains of his father. She smirked as he came within striking distance. All bark and no bite, that's all he is. Naruto swiped at her with her kunai, but she didn't even need to be sober for this. Swaying her head to the side as if dancing to a tune, she easily avoided the kunai, knocking aside the arm like a mere fly, and flicked her finger right in the center of his forehead. His head was thrown back in a jerk, and his body soon followed as it began to fly through the air, crashing painfully on the ground and tumbling on. However, instead of the gleam of defeat, shock and confusion began to swim in her eyes as she fully saw the scene in front of her. Jiraiya and Tsunade weren't doing much better. All he had the same thought going over in their heads. When did he do that? Naruto glared at his opponent as he took her in for the first time. She looked almost exactly like the picture that Jiraiya had showed her, except for the strange diamond mark on her forehead. He concentrated his senses and found out that it was a seal that had a substantially large amount of chakra stored in it. Naruto narrowed his eyes in thought, for he had never read about such a seal that is inked on the forehead. He looked down at his right foot, which he had used to stop his clone from barreling any further. You all must be thinking that just when did I form the shadow clone, aren't you? The voice held the smallest hint of smugness as he took in the shock and confusion on Tsunade's face. He dispelled the shadow clone and sauntered forward until he was standing right where his clone was before the fight. Briefly going through the memories, he had to clamp down the urge to whistle. His clone was harsh, but rightly so, because Tsunade was pathetic. Naruto's question snapped everyone out of their shock. Jiraiya looked as if he was about to speak, but Tsunade beat him to it. When? The question held loads of frustration, as if there was nothing else in this world she wanted to do right now than bash his skull in. Naruto smirked. It should be obvious now, shouldn't it? When no one responded for a few moments, Naruto sighed and explained. The clone was there with all of you from the beginning. I was never there in the bar at all. Jiraiya's mind raced and realization struck him. You switched when you went to the bathroom. Naruto nodded and smirked. You've been talking to a shadow clone all this time, and after going through his memories, I think it might have been the smart thing to do, he said, looking towards Tsunade with a raised eyebrow. Surprisingly, she didn't get angry at all. In fact, she was smirking. Looks like you lose the bet, brat. Naruto raised an eyebrow and folded his arms. No, I really don't see how I lost it. Tsunade felt anger stirring once again at the dismissive attitude, but she reined it in. After all, victory was hers. The rules were physical attacks only. Using a shadow clone violates that rule, since it's obviously a ninjutsu. She placed special emphasis on the word obvious to mock him for his apparent stupidity. It was then that it struck her that Naruto could use the high-level kinjutsu of Kage Bunshin without any fear of exhaustion. But then again, he was an Uzumaki and the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Naruto sighed almost disappointingly. He hated talking to simpletons, but then again, it's a curse that all geniuses have to bear. Actually, you couldn't be more wrong. You made that bet with my shadow clone, so the rules actually applied to him and not me, because I was a separate entity from him at the time. He didn't use any ninjutsu, so he didn't violate any of the rules. Tsunade roared in anger. That's bull! Naruto waved his finger at her like she was a child. Ah, my dear old lady. He easily ignored the spike of killer intent. That's logical reasoning. It's the same as having a proxy to fight for you. Or in this case, more like a single aspect of my personality within a physical body, his own fighting on behalf of, well, me. And since it no longer exists and has returned to being a part of me, I can claim victory on behalf of him, who's essentially myself. In simple words, I win. Tsunade had an eyebrow twitching, complete with her jaw gaping in disbelief at the reasoning. Jiraiya was desperately trying to hold in his snickering with his fist in his mouth, lest Tsunade pounded him into oblivion. It was clear that Naruto had exploited a loophole. Tsunade never said a clone couldn't fight on behalf of the original without a ninjutsu. Shizune was looking nervous at all three of them. After a full minute of gaping, Tsunade blurted out one word, "What?" Naruto felt like banging his head against the wall. God, was this woman, who the old man believed could be the Hokage? They were really doomed, for the seat of Hokage demanded the knowledge of skillful verbal BS, and what he had said was a piece of cake compared to the politics of the seat. He felt his IQ really might have dropped a few points from being exposed to her stupidity. He disliked people who had enormous strength but no brains to back it up. Think of it this way. Is there any difference in me giving an exam or having a clone of mine do it in my place? He asked calmly, suppressing his irritation. He saw that he had finally gotten through to her, because she glared at him with all the amount of anger and hate she could muster. Before she could open her mouth to undoubtedly shout at him again, he spoke again. You, on the other hand, used a jutsu first. Don't take me for an idiot. I know you pack all your strikes with chakra. If you flicked me on muscle power alone, I doubt I would have even felt it. Tsunade gritted her teeth. She was starting to hate the brat more and more. She snapped her gaze at her former teammate, who immediately shut up. He seemed to have picked a rather smart student this time, only this time he had no respect. Sorry, I have to scroll down. Fine, best 2 out of 3, and this time anything goes. She was expecting some sort of negative reaction. A direct confrontation with a Sanin would throw anyone off their game, but all she got was a disappointed shake of the head, as if he had predicted that this would happen. Nonetheless, she settled into a stance, ready to pummel the kid for real this time. If she knew what he was thinking, she wouldn't have waited for Jiraiya to give the signal. Naruto took out a single kunai as he spread his legs in a rather loose stance. She has a pathetically fragile ego. She needs to beat a kid less than half her age to make herself feel better. Jiraiya was closely watching Naruto. He was sure of one thing. Naruto definitely had a plan to beat Tsunade this time. And judging from the confident look in his eyes, it was as if there was no way he would be losing. He sliced the air again with his hand. Hajime! He stopped right there as dead silence filled the alley once again. Jiraiya actually smirked when he realized what Naruto had done, and he mentally applauded him. Shizune had simply gasped in incredulousness at what had happened. Shizune simply gaped in incredulousness at what had happened. Nice word. Naruto had won. In less than a second, the fight was over before it even started. Tsunade froze in shock as he felt the cold steel of a kunai resting on her jugular vein. She slowly turned around to see a cold pair of azure eyes staring into her own, the same eyes that reminded her of the boy's father, who was feared across the world. They were the eyes of someone who wouldn't hesitate to kill, even for a second. How? She hadn't even seen the boy move. There was no movement at all, not even a blur. 1 second he was standing 10 meters away from her. The other he had a kunai resting on her neck. The only thing she had been able to notice was a tiny blue flash. In her shock, she didn't even think further upon that. Naruto retracted his kunai and put it in his holster, as if he hadn't just gotten the drop on a Sani. Maybe because he had already done it before. He smiled condescendingly. Doesn't matter, does it? You lost again. Tsunade just stared at Naruto as he smiled almost cheeringly, putting his hand in his pocket. Now, as per the stakes, you will come back to the village. Tsunade still hadn't been able to figure out just how Naruto had won. She watched as he walked with a spring in his step back to Jiraiya. Naruto had won fair and square, but there was one more thing that bugged her about him. Naruto smiled as he reached Jiraiya, who was standing there smirking. Mission accomplished. Jiraiya shook his head. I don't believe you just did what you did. You put the formula on her when you gripped her wrist, didn't you? Naruto shrugged. Technically, it was my clone, but yes. Jiraiya observed Naruto closely. Wait, oh snap, I lost my spot. No. Oh, you still don't seem to think she's fit to be Hokage. It wasn't a question, but a statement. Naruto wholeheartedly agreed with it. Yes. Jiraiya sighed. You just don't know her story, kid. She's lost her close family in the last Great War. You don't understand her position. The argument was the weakest one, and Naruto had no problem in crushing it instantaneously. Kakashi lost his father, his sensei, and his entire team in the last war. Yet he's still in service of Konoha. Sasuke lost his entire clan in one night, yet he still works for the village. The Son Daime lost his own wife, yet I don't see him giving up anytime soon. I lost my parents less than an hour after my birth. What's your point? Naruto turned to Tsunade, who was no longer looking at him in rage. Instead, she was gazing him with something akin to understanding, pity. Whatever it was, Naruto wasn't in the mood for it. Jiraiya realized that Naruto was right again, but he shook his head. Pragmatism is good, kid, but sometimes you're downright heartless. For the first time in a long time, Jiraiya saw rage flash in Naruto's eyes when he turned back to him. Pure, unadulterated rage. I am not heartless! He turned back to Tsunade, and she took a step back at the anger burning in his freezing cold blue eyes. I am not. You don't think I feel pity? I did feel it for you. For a short amount of time, anyways. You think you're the only one in this world who has dead people? Newsflash, you're not. Everyone's got dead people, but there's no excuse to throw a lifelong pity party. A Hokage should be strong, a person who's willing to put the village first, even before themselves. Your sensei believes you can do it, and you have neither the right nor a reason to betray that trust. Tsunade's expression went blank. Why are you so passionate about the title of Hokage? Naruto smirked, letting go of some of his anger. Because I will be the heir to the name of Hokage, as it's my dream. Tsunade felt her eyes widen at those words. She could have sworn that she saw the visage of Dan and Nawaki behind him. Those words were spoken with an absolute amount of determination. No, not just that. He was absolutely certain he would become Hokage. There wasn't an ounce of doubt in his voice. Boom. Alright guys, and this is where we're going to cut. We're going to take a short little break. Alright, just a 2-second break. Get a water, drink something. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you back on the other side. Deuces. Strangely, it didn't hurt hearing those words after a long time. In fact, it felt rather refreshing. Naruto was quite adept at reading people. The slight widening of the eyes indicated that she had a previous encounter with the same words in the past. Combining that with her hatred for the position of the Hokage and her past, it was logical that someone close to her had the same dream. It was meant he was getting through to her. He just needed one last push to make her think in his favor. How about another bet? The words snapped her out of her memories as she looked quizzically at Naruto. Before she knew, the words fell out of her mouth. What's your wager? Naruto smiled. Watch. His right palm faced upwards in a half-clawed position, while his left hovered in the same position over his right palm. Chakra swirled for a few seconds until... Jiraiya taught you that? She squawked. Though shocked inwardly, she was thoroughly impressed. It was undeniably the Resengan. Props to the kid for getting it perfect. Naruto let the Resengan dissipate. As you can see, it takes me almost 5 seconds to form a perfect Resengan. I'll bet you that by the end of the week, I can create one with one hand in an instant. He put pressure on the instant with a snap of a finger. Aw, brat, I was just starting to like you, but I know it's a bet that I can't lose, Tsunade thought to herself. While creating the Resengan with both hands was impressive, it was a whole nother thing to transfer the entire load to one hand. The load that you're distributing with two hands, not to mention circulating a load such as that in an instant, was simply not possible. Even Jiraiya couldn't do it. If I win, you'll come back and become Hokage. If you win, we promise to not bother you ever again. It seemed fair enough, but she wanted to test his resolve. Just how far he was willing to go to bring her back. Not just that, but if you lose, you'll quit being a ninja. Jiraiya and Shizune looked at her in disbelief, but she wasn't rattled at all. She serenely gazed back at Naruto, who had now a frown on his face. These are my terms, take it or leave it. Naruto said nothing for a while, just gazing back at her. The terms were harsh, but he was a shinobi. A shinobi is the one who endures. The stakes had just gone up, and he couldn't afford to lose here. See you in a week. With that, he abruptly turned and walked away, with Jiraiya following him after giving a two-finger salute. Shizune rushed to her master. Tsunade-sama, that was very cruel of you. Tsunade waved her reprimand away, but said nothing. She looked forward to collecting her winnings at the end of the week, but there was still one thing that bothered her. Naruto didn't look worried at all. Naruto walked leisurely alongside Jiraiya, who shook his head and chuckled. I can't believe you suckered her into a sucker bet. You downplayed yourself deliberately, didn't you? You could very well master, like you said, in 3 days at most. Naruto smirked minutely. It's better if my opponent underestimates me. It only increases my chances of winning. Jiraiya frowned. Impressive as it may be, that was really quite underhanded of you. Winning by fair means does wonders to your conscience rather than unfair ones. Naruto gave the look to Jiraiya, who suddenly felt as if he had spoken something extremely foolish. He spoke slowly as if speaking to a child, making the older man feel even more stupid. We are shinobi who live in a world of deceit. Since when did we start playing fair? Naruto shook his head at Jiraiya as he laughed sheepishly. As they reached their room, Naruto closed the door and remembered that he had to talk to Jiraiya about the Kyuubi's training. He quickly made a few hand signs and slapped his palm on the wall. A complex array of seals spread out over the wall of the room, a privacy barrier developed by the Uzumaki, one that Jiraiya happened to recognize as he turned to Naruto with serious eyes containing a hint of submission. What's the matter? Or suspicion. What's the matter? Naruto dropped his hand from the wall as he sat down in front of Jiraiya. He looked him in the eyes and said it with complete seriousness. I need to talk to you about something important. Since it's highly classified, it's better to take precautions to ensure nobody eavesdrops on us. Jiraiya nodded and folded his arms. Fair enough. Now what is this about? Kurama wants to train me in the use of his chakra. More specifically, he'll be training me to master each tail. Jiraiya's eyebrows rose in surprise. Of all the news he expected to hear, this was the last on his list. But he shouldn't be surprised, considering his godson's friendship with the Kyuubi. They seem to be on quite good terms. Making Naruto the sole holder of the Fox contract was proof of that. He echoed for clarification. He'll train you to master each tail. Naruto nodded, and that got Jiraiya thinking. On one hand, this was really good progress. Minato intended for Naruto to master the power of the Kyuubi eventually, so it's better if he started training for now. On the other hand, every time Naruto uses the Kyuubi's chakra, the seal would grow weaker until such a time that the Kyuubi entirely became a part of Naruto, or worse, decided to escape. But that was a long time, so the pros outweighed the cons, and he believed that Naruto truly was friends with Kurama. Alright, that is good news. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Naruto smirking. What? Naruto leant forward as if sharing a secret. You said that I wasn't fair in my bet with Tsunade, right? Well, she might not know this, but this pretty much evens it out in terms of training, right? Jiraiya chuckled. You're not exactly wrong, but good one, kid. After that, they turned in for the night. The next morning marked the start of Naruto's training with Kurama's chakra. Of course, Naruto wasn't an idiot to do it all by himself. He found an empty ground, and after ensuring that no one would be alerted of his usage of Kurama's chakra, since it would be undoubtedly causing a panic, with seals, he set to work. He created 40 shadow clones. Alright, I want each of you to work on mastering the Resengan with one hand, and you will do it in an efficient way. Each time one of you has a theory that has a plausible chance of working to reach our goal, you'll test it out and then dispel so that the others can try it out as well. I know that it won't be achieved in just one day, but I want to be able to form the Resengan with one hand by the end of the day. Understood? The shadow clones shouted in affirmation and spread out over the field to begin the training. Naruto had given a bit of thought to the process of how he set to mastering the jutsu. Even though he had felt that using the easy way out would be insulting his father's memory, he didn't feel that much strongly this time. Of course, this time he was training in two different things at the same time. Shadow clones were the best way to do it as well. Speaking of, he formed 10 more clones. Go to Jiraiya and tell him that you want to learn the Kanashibari no Jutsu. If he tries to object, tell him that I have already got 40 of me working on mastering the Resengan while I'm personally training with Kurama's Chakra. The 10 clones nodded and vanished at once in a blue flash. After his organization of his clones was over, he then sat down in a meditative position. A second later, he appeared in his mindscape, right beside Kurama. So, how are we going to do this? Kurama at first said nothing, opting to just stare at the vast body of water that represented Naruto's chakra reserves. Naruto, the first thing that we're going to do is change your mindscape a bit. Naruto was a bit surprised at what Kurama had said. Any particular reason? Kurama looked down at him and smirked. Yes, I'm very surprised that you haven't quite noticed a very strange thing. Naruto racked his brain and gazed out, spreading his senses and taking stock of all that was happening in his mindscape, searching for any anomaly. After what seemed like a few minutes, he frowned. I don't see it. Whatever are you talking about is not quite here, in my opinion. I'm talking about the representation of me, or more specifically, my chakra. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard the statement. Kurama was right. There was nothing in his mindscape that represented his chakra reserves. He was puzzled. How is this possible? The answer in his own question came to him a second later. Based on a study of the 8-trigram ceiling style, Kurama's chakra will flow into him bit by bit, merging with him and becoming a part of his reserves. The mindscape was his, and therefore it only represented him, not Kurama. It was only when Kurama became a part of him that Kurama's aspects would be fully represented as well. Until then, Kurama would only have a small amount of control. That's right, but only partially. Remember the time when you granted me a little control by tearing a little portion of the seal? I only used part of the control to get access to your senses. I reserved the rest of it until times such as this, where it would be easier to show you how to measure the quantity of my chakra. Kurama explained and motioned Naruto to watch. Kurama closed his eyes as he concentrated and exercised a bit of the control that he had in Naruto's mindscape. He'd been thinking for a long time on how to best explain to Naruto. A second later, a humongous reservoir, inverted of all things and facing the sky, appeared on the far left of the large sea that was Naruto's chakra. Naruto looked confused as Kurama opened his eyes and exhaled. What did you do? Kurama explained as he settled down on his hind legs. You haven't actually seen what happens when you use my chakra, right? Without waiting for Naruto to shake his head in negative, he continued. Your chakra actually starts to disappear into the sky up above, a sign that indicates that you're depleting your reserves. Since they are your own reserves and you've been using them for a long time, you know exactly how much to use for everything you do. He then grabbed the startled Naruto and teleported right to the strange reservoir. Naruto gave a slightly suspicious and confused look to Kurama, who just nodded for him to observe. Naruto complied and almost fell right off the ledge that they were standing on. Compared to Naruto's own reserves, Kurama's reserves were downright gargantuan. The vast orange ocean that was Kurama's chakra was almost never-ending, almost as if it were not a singular ocean, but 2 or 3 of them combined. As expected of the mightiest of the teal beasts, interestingly enough, even though the reservoir was inverted, none of the chakra was spilling. It was perfectly reflected their image like a mirror would. As you can see, this is the amount of chakra that I possess. Kurama explained with pride and smugness. The main problem in my chakra usage is that my chakra would be knowing the quantity. You can't possibly determine how much of this is, or how much this is. He gestured to the vast water body. This is one tail of my chakra, which is why it is created in a form of a reservoir with 9 gates. Naruto quickly grasped what Kurama was trying to say. The gates are to control the flow of your chakra. Each gate will open to allow the flow of exactly 1 tail of chakra. Kurama grinned in pride and nodded in approval. It was nice to have a genius for a host. Exactly. I've made it in a way that not all my chakra will pass through a gate. This is how you will be controlling the flow of my chakra into your body. But this is my limit, Naruto. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Kurama pointed to his collar. This seal controls how much I can forcefully send into your system. As I said earlier, you'll need to learn how to control my chakra without me acting as a buffer. I'm sure you know not to open the first one very suddenly. Open it a little so that my chakra flows into you at a steady and slow rate, allowing you to adjust to it. Naruto nodded in agreement of Kurama's suggestion. Something like this was best taken slow. He exited his mindscape and found himself aware of the sounds of his shadow clones, aware of every sound and feeling. He reached inside once again and mentally commanded the first gate to open a little. He almost gasped. It was so alive, so warm and full of energy, almost like a shot of adrenaline straight to the heart, and it was just the beginning. It felt like almost eternity until the first gate reached its limit. Naruto internally assessed himself and found several changes. First was the feral edge, almost like his emotions were trying to get the better of him. However, years of practicing to control his emotions allowed him to restrain his rationality and allowed him to retain his rationality and cognitive process. Second was the physical changes. He looked down at his hands and grinned as he flexed the wicked-looking clawed hands. Third was the chakra. As he was using Kurama's chakra, he had shelved his own, and Kurama's one tail of chakra easily dwarfed his own. So the excess was escaping or leaking. It was like a dense orange flame that was escaping from his body, covering him in a sort of aura. It felt exhilarating. And this, my friends, is where we are going to end this part off. I hope that you enjoyed this part, and I hope that you continue to enjoy future parts down the line. Comment down below what you think I should drop next, because that's what we're doing now, because, I'm just going to go by popular demand, and we'll just drop whatever you guys want. There will be a surprise at 900. I can assure you of that. I'm looking forward to that, which will carry on into 1,000, hopefully. So there will be a surprise at 900. I hope you guys look forward to that, and I hope you guys will enjoy that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this part. Like, comment, and subscribe. The story link will be in the description if you want to read it for yourself, or don't like the way that I narrate things, the way that I talk. That's totally fine. I have no problem with that. No offense taken. Link in the description when bringing the story. You can read it for yourself. Also, Discord link in the description if you want to tell me things directly or talk to me directly. I'm on Discord almost 24/7. You can message me, say what's up. Cool. And then lastly, I already said it, but like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed. I respond to all comments, heart all comments, and I like all comments, and I genuinely appreciate them. If you do choose to subscribe, please turn on post notifications so that you get notified whenever I post a video or upload something, this series or another one. And with that out of the way, without further ado, this is your boy, the Anime Abu, and I am out. Deuces.